Yo, Don.
Hello.
So when I went to New York, unfortunately, it was like one slot, so I couldn't get anybody else there.
Yeah.
But the Switch 2 tour has come to LA.
Yes.
So we got one more slot
Ching.
for Don Casanova
I hit the jackpot.
to play the Switch 2.
Yes.
How long were you able to be there?
A total of 3 hours, pretty much.
Okay, so not bad. I think you could definitely see like everything you want to see in that time. You wouldn't necessarily see everything, but I think there's stuff where like every person's gonna have stuff. It's like, okay, I don't care about this or that. Yeah.
Yeah, not enough time to see everything, but really well-organized event, well-staffed, well-organized. It was very impressive. You know, shout out to Sean, an Easy Allies fan who I bumped into, but that was working the event.
Oh, cool.
And he worked New York. I think he saw you in New York. Maybe he didn't say hi. I don't know. But Sean, what's up? Thank you. Awesome event to everyone out there at Nintendo. Yeah, so like 3 hours ended up being an ample amount of time. I didn't get to try every single demo game that they had there, but there was enough time to like hit all the stuff I wanted to, even a little more, and also even return to one game for a second round.
I did that. I did that myself. But like for us, like the press day was like all day, where it's like, you know, eat lunch and then like
nice.
and people are like, go back over there. Like they wanted us to use all of the time we could.
Nice. Yeah.
Even though the embargo was like 6 a.m. the next morning, so a lot of people just like bolted and like went to shoot impressions.
I was one of the one of the last ones on the floor here. Like at one point, I was doing Civ 7 as my very last one because I was like, okay, Civ 7, and then I like turned around. There's like literally like I don't know 150 Nintendo, like everyone in red shirts, you know.
Right.
So that was the only person on the floor that wasn't.
And you also had like a better idea of what to expect because I went in there like the first round, and like I thought I was like in the room that had everything. And then, like, I turned the corner. I was like, "Wait, Donkey Kong is here!"
Oh,
I was like, I would have gone there right away if I knew that was over there.
No, similar thing. Donkey Kong was right front and center. You couldn't miss that. But similar thing with CD Projekt.
Cyberpunk. They had the mature
Cyberpunk
area.
and Yakuza were off tucked to the side in an extra room that I didn't realize for like till I was like more than halfway through, and suddenly someone's like, "Check out Cyberpunk," and I was like, "It's here!" So yeah, it was awesome, but well organized. So I checked out a bunch. It was sick. Yeah, it was sick.
Nice. So let's kick it off. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I'll try to go in order. First of all, just real quick, I got to say, huge shout out to Blood's note taking. You know, I was halfway through this thing and I said, oh man, I wish I had a notebook. How am I going to remember this stuff? I'll try to go in order of what happened so I remember it, hopefully. Mario Kart World is where it started off.
Yeah.
Right away, we got brought in there. Well, first we got a chance to, immediately we got to go in and look at the hardware before it was on.
It's like a little museum. It's pretty nice. So
glass
you had
museum
one
cases.
side was like in the glass cases, all the packaging and all the accessories, little wheels and stuff like that. And then they had the other side where you could actually put hands on.
Yes. Tiny little wheels, too. The wheel was like that big. I was like, is that smaller? Weird little wheel. But yeah, so right away I started feeling those magnets, you know, the clicking, all that stuff feels nice, you know.
Oh, I know. You were skeptical of the magnets, right?
I was skeptical of the magnets. The only thing that I wish they didn't have the lock button. The lock button works very good. So these things are secure. And when they get sucked in there, you know, it makes a nice click, but they feel secure. But then they do have the lock, so you got to release it. But I was hoping it wouldn't have a lock because I wanted to play like clicking it the whole time, you know, like Nervous Habit. Like you just...
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably not good for a connector.
Yeah. Well, you know, but I won't be able to do that. But they felt nice. It felt, you know, immediately just really similar, obviously, to the OLED, you know, a little bit bigger, though. You could tell it was bigger, but I expected it to feel thicker. It didn't feel thicker. It didn't really feel heavier. It had the stand is a really thin. It's strong, you know, but it's a nice design, but it's a lot thinner and lighter than the OLED. So overall, a nice design. It felt solid and really similar, you know. I thought I was going to feel maybe a little different, but...
Yeah, I think I definitely noticed the weight when I was playing Mario Kart handheld. The thickness, they specifically point out in the Direct that they kept the thickness the same.
Yeah, so
that's crazy. But I think the thing about the Joy-Cons is it's sort of like the hidden thing of like, you don't complain unless there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, with the Joy-Cons being larger, I think they fit my hands better now than the original Joy-Cons, which are like sometimes I'm just like struggling to like get down to like the D-pad or whatever like that. But I also, you know, we played a limited number of games, so it's like not as many use cases, right?
Yeah.
But I think that might be better. Like, the ones that really get me are the trying to get to the face buttons on the PSVR 2 controller.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't even see the thing.
Yeah, you're
and
like, where am I?
I'm like hitting multiple buttons at the same. I was like, okay.
Regarding the size of the Joy-Cons, yes, I agree. So like the surface size is greater, but in terms of the thinness, that feels about the same to me. At least it felt about the same. So, I agree. It was a little more comfortable. You could feel the little bit extra room there. However, I guess the jury's still a little out for me, but at this point, I'm still wishing, originally I said, Switch 2, I hope it has kind of a bulkiness to the Joy-Con, something you can wrap your fingers around a little bit, similar to the sort of the pad, for the Wii U, whatever,
Right, yep.
Some kind of grip that you can really grab onto, because my hand, sometimes my fingers get a little if I'm holding onto those thin. So we'll see if that ends up, but definitely you notice the surface area size is bigger from top to bottom.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that when you're actually playing with them, like, all of those stations were tethered, and that
plays into
the
it.
comfort
Sure,
level
that
as well.
plays into it.
It's like that spot when you're at the very beginning is the only time when you can actually hold the things without anything on them because you have a person just watching you like a hawk the whole time. Yeah, if not multiple people.
Yeah, no, but they were cool. Everyone was super cool, friendly, helpful. It was an awesome. It was a great experience. Yeah. So Mario Kart World is where we jumped right in. I jumped in. They partnered us up, and we jumped into like a little, just individual Grand Prix races or whatever, one race at a time. And it felt great. It looked nice. I see what you're saying, that you can't really do it justice looking at a YouTube video, even if it's high quality. You just got to kind of see it and feel it in motion, and we went back and forth. They'd had us do a race on the screen, a nice big screen. Then they had us do a portable. Then we went back to the screen. We got to do a few rounds. I think we got to do at least 4 races together.
Oh, nice.
Me and the partner. So it was nice. We got in there a little early, actually, so they gave us a little extra time.
Yeah, I wonder if they tweaked some of that timing from because again, I was the first wave of the first day.
Oh yeah.
So they just we did a split screen race and then the handheld and then we went upstairs.
Oh yeah, so we had a little bit more. Yeah, because originally they said, you're almost out of time, maybe you'll get to do another, but then even after that we still got to do another. So it was kind of cool. Yeah. The scale of everything, like you probably notice in the trailer, everything is larger, just the whole world. So you notice that. The one thing, they had us at 100cc. It felt slower maybe than 100cc before. And I don't know if that's a combination of maybe it is slightly slower, and also in combination with the fact that the scale of everything's just bigger. That track is a lot larger and flatter, and
the track
objects are bigger. So because you're at the 100cc, unless you're really cruising along, getting boosts and everything, you're kind of feeling, the crawl of everything. But
a lot of 8's tracks have really tight turns too.
Yeah, so. yeah, right. This had some large open areas, and so a lot of the tracks were very big and open and flat and wide and big long jumps. It definitely felt way larger and grander just overall than past Mario Karts and Mario Kart 8 and everything. So I had fun with it, race with the cow, race with Cowboy Mario. Nice. I got a few different vehicles. I could try the motorcycle in there. It was on a random selection with tracks, so unfortunately, we couldn't select one that we wanted. So I know you told me you got to check out the rails, try to grind the rails. I was able to grind a few middle track rails and stuff, but I didn't find a lot of opportunities where they're side rails or anything like that to grind. Not a lot of rails in general in the tracks they had us on, but I got a couple quick chances. But you can hop. Other than that, the controls are very, it's Mario Kart, so we know what to expect. It felt good. The water stuff, I was curious about. They've said there's a track that's almost all water, but because there was random selection, we didn't get that. But we got one that had a few portions of water, and it felt nice. It was similar to the jet skiing stuff in, was it Resort 2 or something? Wii Sports Resort 2 or one of those.
Wii Sports Resort.
Remember it had the jet skiing in that? Yeah, so it's like that. It's not wave race, obviously, but it's fun. It feels nice. There were one area where there's little waves and stuff, and I did get to do a tiny bit of a dolphin, so that was encouraging that they actually let you go underwater a little bit, But so everything looked nice, felt good, everything was great. The design of the track, just I don't know, all of the tracks we played were really big and pretty lengthy too. I noticed that as well. So I don't know, it's just overall the distance that you travel is greater. But so it was all good. But what really impressed me was, then they brought us into. Oh no, they let us do an open world thing real quick.
Yeah, but when you do the knockout race,
Yeah.
While you're waiting for everyone.
Yes, thank you. This is why I need the notebook.
Yeah. While you're waiting for everyone to ready up.
Yeah.
Then you just have
explore the world,
space to free roam.
And I had a decent amount of time to free roam. That was better than I expected because right when I got into the world, obviously they're like, you're in free roam while you're waiting for the lobby to fill or whatever. So you immediately just drive off the track to see what happens. I fall and go into water and then pop into the jet ski fortuitously,
Yes.
So it was awesome right away. I was like, okay, cool. But then suddenly it occurred to me very quickly, which I guess it just hadn't sunk in before, because suddenly I saw like snow in the distance and this and that. And I'm like, oh, this is all the map right here, accessible? And they're like, yeah, it's all the map, just like Forza, And we knew that.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And I know you told me that, but for some reason it didn't quite sink in. And I don't know how to describe it, but the excitement that like went into my body when I was like, actually like, oh, this is the whole giant map. I mean, it was like the equivalent of if you think of whatever, Mario, any Mario with the overworld map, and you just see that map with the different lands, and you got to go to the different lands.
But even like a lot of Mario games, like, you get a map and then you get another map, and it's not like
this felt like all the maps.
Interconnected.
This is like all the lands, the desert, the snow, everything, and it's all there, and it's all suddenly you can just explore it.
And so some of those are just like gigantic bridges and stuff that like go over some of the channels, and
the scale of things is huge. You can get kind of stuck in areas. I mean, it's like so the excitement and fun around that was like exceeded my expectations and seems actually way kind of cooler than I expected. And also, I asked, it's like how much distance I was wondering between courses are there? Like, is it just a little hill you cross over and you're at the next course? It's like they're basically saying like a lot of these courses are sort of continuous. They're not as many loops. They're not as many like circuits apparently.
Right.
So like a lot of these courses
are
like
some people are concerned about, but I'll have to see like more of the final product.
I like that. Yeah. I gotta say it's really refreshing for Mario Kart if it ends up being that way, where you're not doing as many laps. Basically, you're just more like what do they call it? The Grand Prix, or when they do legs of which Mario Kart's had certain courses that are like that, but the majority of them are loops or whatever. That proposition was awesome, and that's also what lends it to like just this huge world where one track is kind of leads to the other. You got to go through a whole track to get to another. But when you're on free roam, you're just trucking all around, going through snow, everything. And the dynamic weather that they have, or I don't know if it's dynamic, but weather.
I think it is.
Weather that they're adding, and like I cruised through a snow area at one point, which is super cool because the snow like clumps up and sticks to your tires.
Yeah, I didn't get to any snow,
and I was like, oh, this is new. I was like, I know we've had like snow, I think, courses in Mario Kart, but I don't remember ever like cruising through it and having it. So they were saying the weather affects your car in all kinds of ways, visually and like, performance wise. So, but especially the snow like sticking to my tires and clumping. I asked, he was like, there's rain that affects you this way. There's, all this stuff. I was like, is there fog? He hadn't seen fog yet. So there's no sign of fog yet. But I'm hoping for some dense fog at some point.
What did you think about the kart selection? Because the thing that they've had the last couple of games is they've had like you pick your wheels and you pick your body, and now it's no, it's just like this is a kart. Pick a kart, pick that kart.
That's what I was curious. I was curious.
More kind of feels to me like there's more personality behind each kart.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was like they were locking off parts of the game, or if that's the way it actually is going to be. Because they had a much bigger selection of carts, but they're all already pre-assembled, like what Blood is saying. So you're not doing the slot machine thing where you're picking the different components of the car. Yeah, they already have the tires and everything, but they have a nice selection of them. And I loved them. All the carts had personalities. I mean, I was easily able to find one that was basically like, oh, this is what I would essentially make. It had the wheels I wanted, everything on. So and they had a lot of personality and stuff. So I liked how they did that. And the character thing was similar, where at least how they had it set up for us, where you had a lot of characters to choose from. And then you had a lot of like costumed characters to choose from right out of the gate.
I'm
multiple Donkey Kongs, multiple Marios. And I was like, are they just unlocking that for us?
This week, I'm very curious if they're going to get into the details on that, because there's got to be more to the costumes than they're just being costumes. There's something that they're leaving out. Like, I don't know if maybe the item boxes like give you specific like character-specific items that only you get in that costume, or what. Like, I'm just I don't know what they could do exactly, but it feels like there's got to be a gameplay reason to be like, because it's not just in the open world that you get those costume food bags. You can find them during races and stuff too. And the fact that it's like randomized, like when you get an item out of an item box and all of that, it's just like, okay, what's what is the deal? What is the advantage to me changing costumes
mid-race?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, curious too. I wasn't able to tell, but I liked it. I liked the big selection right out of the gate. That felt nice too. It felt like, it was almost like a Smash Brothers Mario Kart, because you're just like, whoa, there's like a ton of characters to choose from and a ton of carts like right out of the gate. So it felt like a really nice selection. And so, yeah, overall, I liked it. Maybe, maybe a little bit. The open world element of it, I think, is what pushed it a little above what maybe I was expecting, which I'm actually I think I'll enjoy that aspect of it more than I kind of thought. So
yeah. Well, and I think the thing that makes that, because an open world, like I know from experience with open world racing games, an open world racing game can be super boring sometimes.
Yeah.
If it's just miles of flatness and there's nothing to really find. But like even in the short amount of time that we had at these events, I felt like, oh, I see something that's up there and I try to get it. But I failed. And I think the fact that you can fail getting to some of those things, that there's a path up there, or that there's some coins or whatever, I think that actually makes it actually more appealing to me, because it's this risk-reward element of exploration.
And the world itself, just in its design, like that was the magic I was talking about that I suddenly felt when I realized all these lands were connected. It has that like Nintendo magic of world design where you're like, this is a really fun world to just like go around in and look for stuff. Yeah. It's not a boring world, of like, it's not just like miles and miles of geography and landscape of some of these racers get, where you're like aspects of, it just looked like it was like a fun little world.
Even like a lot of the characters and stuff that would be popping around, like, you go through, like you're saying, like the desert or some, I'm not exactly sure where I was, but some place where like Monty moles were popping up.
Oh yeah, because it's
they would
whole
pop up and then you would just stunt off of their molehill and
No, that's the kind of Nintendo like magical world kind of thing I mean, for sure. And we played the elimination mode in the
knockout tour.
Knockout tour. So you're knocking out the last 4 every you get to certain checkpoints, and the bottom 4, however many get eliminated.
Yeah, I think it's basically every leg. So like what's it, like 5 different parts, right? So
because it started it's something like 5. I think it was like 5 sections or something.
Yeah. Oh, so it'd be more like 6. So I'm trying to think about how that works out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I remember it went from like 24 to 20.
Yeah, it's every 4. Every checkpoint there's 4 people that get knocked out, but I'm trying to think about how that works out with the number of tracks.
That's the other thing that's interesting about this. We have the bigger group of racers, right? How many is it?
It starts with 24.
Yeah, so 24. So one thing I noticed is just that Mario Kart brutality of like, oh, I'm just going to like be dominating and then I'm going to lose 3 or 4 spots suddenly. And it's like that, but exacerbated with that many cards, because like I'm like, first of all, it was epic because I was struggling, and then suddenly I was almost at the back of the pack, and then I barely stayed in, so I was like, didn't get knocked out, and then I ended up just doing rad maneuvers, getting through everything, leading the whole race, doing really great. But then it's like suddenly you just like one thing goes wrong, and you're like 14 cars, like, you know what I mean? So it's like a roller coaster of Mario Kart emotion, where you're just like, the devastation is greater than it's ever been before, but the thrill is also greater because you have this like mob behind you, so brutal. So I didn't win, but I made it to like almost the final group, so it was pretty good. I don't remember what my final place was.
Yeah, I think
it was fun.
It was the 3rd time that I had gone to Mario Kart, the knockout tour, that I actually managed to get first place.
Yeah.
But then it was like I felt terrified, because it was like one of those things where like I'm in first, but there's still a long way to go. So like somebody's gonna blue shell me, dude. Like it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and like somehow I'm still here.
Yeah. Oh man. Anytime you get ahead in Mario Kart, you're like, no, there's still a lap left. I'm screwed. I'm gonna end up in 10th. You like don't want to get in the top 3 until like the last 100 yards of the race, but. Yeah, so and it's a fun thing too when the checkpoint, you feel the checkpoints coming up, they're flashing, HUD elements on screen. So it's an intense thing of like when you're going into when you're right there at the edge, because it was a couple times when it was like I was either about to get eliminated, I just made it into the pack, or like when I did get eliminated, I lost like 5 or 6 places in a flash of an eye at the moment. And some of the excitement, I'm sure, was because in the room is a bunch of people all playing together, so people were like loud and it was fun, So that's a curious thing, I guess, how that'll translate. But overall, it was a nice, intense, fun feeling going through those checkpoints. Trying to stay in the race, just like it is. That mode is a great mode. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Mario Kart was great.
And what's next?
Then we went into the free play zone. So first they made us play Mario Kart, and then they set us into the arcade, essentially. It was just like a giant open area that had just like a bunch of game banks everywhere set up of everything else. Immediately, I didn't mess around. I went to Bonanza. I had to go to Bonanza, immediately. So got into the Donkey Kong, and what can I say? I mean, it's like fun, and it's also probably a little bit exceeded my expectations. The things I liked about it so much is the destruction of the environment stuff. I expected it to be a lot more like segmented and sort of controlled and like clearly like, oh yeah, all that soil there I can bust up. Oh yeah, the top of this mountain I can bust up. But at least in the first kind of world they put you in, it's not like that. I mean, you can like pretty much bust up stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the thing I love about this is there's just a whole world there. Like you can just dig deep if you want to, and suddenly you bust yourself into a chamber underground, or you're like finding hidden items in the soil, and like it's not nearly as limited and linear, especially considering it was like the first world they're putting you in, or maybe it was the second. I don't know.
There was like a little
you get through one tiny little area, and then it's like
the real game,
sort of tropical themed a little bit or something. It's like real bright and sunny.
It's very sunny, yeah.
So that whole area, bunch of multiple paths. So the destruction is fun. You can do the dig deep, dig up, beat stuff forward. You can pick up rocks, which is really fun, and throw it at everyone, or just rip like a piece of soil from anything pretty much and use it as a projectile, which is really fun. And then the other thing the mechanic that I love that I didn't realize is you can climb on everything.
Oh, Zelda,
which is awesome because you can just like climb any little, that really makes it just like all this terrain is super explorable and fun and big.
And it's not like, so like in Zelda, right, you can climb on anything.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of like, it's an effort, right? Like every inch is like, you're great.
Yeah.
But in Donkey Kong, it's like, boom, boom, boom.
Fun.
Boom, boom,
yeah.
boom.
You're just scurrying up stuff and then climbing, there's stuff even. So you're exploring the land. They have like challenge rooms and things hidden that you can access. And the challenge rooms are like, then take you to another kind of, sort of environment, but you can climb on like vertical, for hanging from the ceiling and do everything. So it was super awesome. Parts of the graphics were like really, just like kind of okay, when you're like, okay, this world looks pretty cool, but then at the same time, like a lot of the close-up stuff is really impressive. The materials look nice, and the soils and the textures look really nice. The gold, there's like all this gold you're collecting and breaking up, and it just looks so beautiful.
That's one of those things with the amount of like gold and stuff flying around. That's one of those things that it reminded me of Astrobot.
Yes.
Because you know how like all the crazy particles and stuff is like, it gives me that kind of sense.
For sure.
And you clap to like collect it all at once.
Oh yeah.
The thing I really appreciated about that level design that they had for that like sunny level that you're talking about is when I first played it, I basically like beelined it down this like main path that kind of like corkscrews down to this like fountain or whatever that's plugged up. And then you unplug it, and then there's a hole that goes down to the next level, and that's basically it. But it's just one of these game design things, Don. It's like it's all about sight lines, right? So the sight lines lead you down there to that main goal.
Yep.
But then the next time I played it, I'm like looking around. I was like, oh, there's all kinds of stuff over here and over there, and like if I go up this cliff, there's this other side area here with these pipes and everything. And there's just a lot of space, and like you're saying, there's just if you just from the start, you just like dig through the earth, there's this whole area there to explore. This is basically underneath of you with all these little things to pop you back up. Yeah.
No, great world design, and just like big, there's vertical. It's just like a mountainous region immediately, and that's the thing. You can go like, there's just a million different ways to approach the landscape, but then there's like various things within the landscape that you want to reach anyway as side objectives and stuff like that. So there's like a whole bunch of different ways to traverse the main objective, basically approach the main objective and get through it. But there's also like a bunch of other stuff scattered around the landscape that you want to go explore and find. And it's just super fun, like just being in some cavern, exploring stuff, and then you're just like punching your way, punch deep, and you go deep through the terrain. Like that's the thing that impressed me. It's not, I thought it was kind of going to be like a shallow thing before you hit bedrock everywhere, you know, but it's not like that. There's a lot of areas where you're just like moling your way through, and then suddenly you'll pop out into daylight and you're like, oh, where am I? Like I got to figure out now. You just start climbing up the cliff or something. You're on a cliffside, you know, it's like so awesome. And they have a neat little map you can use, you know, like 3D map to rotate it around and check it out. It doesn't show you like the interior of the geography, you know, but and overall it did a good job too of like, I was like, how are they going to handle this, you know, when you're digging into these little closed spaces? And, you know, so I did a lot of experimenting with like getting myself into little mole hole situations and then swinging the camera around just to see how things would like,
the way it
clip through it with the camera.
Yeah,
and it did a like really nice job. That's not easy to do. So overall it did a really nice job, you know, so it was pretty, and it was a pretty game. Yeah, the gold, there's all kinds of like crystal stuff you break, and yeah, like you're saying, just tons of particle stuff. Water is just so pretty. You can swim, but you can't, it didn't seem like you can like dive down really or anything. You can swim on the surface and stuff, but at least that's all I was able to do in that area. So yeah, Bonanza. And then so that ended up being the game though that after I played a bunch of others, I went back to try again because I was like, I want to check this out even more to get a real good sense of it. So yeah, Bonanza is a bonanza. It's fun. Yeah, it was cool. I like that one a lot. I think that was all I had to say on that one that I can think of. Hopefully I don't forget. So then after that, I walked over and looked at Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild just to gaze upon it. And they also had the app running in the center. They had multiple, right. And the app is kind of neat. You know, you have the GPS for the Korok seeds and stuff. And it's fun. You know, that's kind of, it actually seemed funner than I expected.
It's an interesting thing because it's like, okay, now that I've played those games each for 200 plus hours,
yeah.
You know, it's like maybe if I were going to go back to them, I might mess around with the app.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know, if you're a first time player, it's like, don't use that. That's not what this game is about.
Yeah, for first time. No, this, I think totally good point. Yeah, it's definitely for someone that's just like in love with this game, that's played this game, and that wants like more, because it even has like additional dialogue, I guess, and like stuff like, you know, Zelda will appear and say additional things that aren't in the game, and, you know, not like cutscenes, but just like dialogue,
it's like landmark kind of notes and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So and then so it's for a lover of Zelda that's already experienced with it. Definitely not. But on the other hand, Blood, I got to say, you were most visually impressed with Zelda. I guess I could see it looked better, and I could tell it looked better, but maybe there wasn't the great leap I was maybe expecting. Maybe I just boosted my expectations too high or something, because it looked good, definitely better, but it wasn't like I was like awestruck or something like wow, they like did this whole thing or something. It's not to that level, right? I didn't watch a whole lot of it though, and I didn't play it too. So I watched it for maybe 5-10 minutes.
I think more than anything for me, it was just the smoothness of the motion. Like it was just like a completely different level.
Good point. The smoothness, and the transition. Like when I will say that, the transition from like the sky way down to the ground, that whole thing.
Oh
is super smooth.
I definitely have to dive into the freaking.
I watched some of that. I didn't go see underground, but I saw from like Sky Islands down to the surface through rain. Tiny, minuscule piece of pop-in I saw, but overall it was like really gorgeous, smooth, fast. And that's the thing in general with all the games I saw that weren't new, other than, every game just looks smooth and beautiful. Like the motion and everything is just like very nice and noticeable of everything. So that stood out. So the Zelda looked cool. The app thing actually looks pretty fun. Then I got to Metroid. I didn't watch too long because I was itching to get to Metroid. I had to try it out.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into that. And that, was like great because all the Metroid Primes are great. And this feels like a very at least in the small amount I got to play, just like a logical, rational, grounded, next part of the Prime. Like it didn't feel like, at least in the beginning, like it didn't show you anything. It was like taking some huge leaps. There wasn't anything like revolutionizing it, but it wasn't bad. It was fun and great. I wish I could have, maybe heard the audio scape because it was so loud and we didn't have headphones or anything like that. So I really couldn't. Right. So I'm sure, sound design in Metroid is so amazing. But that might be something that really elevates it as well. So it looked nice. It played nice. It was smooth, fast, 120 frames.
Were you playing mouse the whole time? Or?
So that's the thing. I was eager to check it out with mouse right away. But and it was good. Mouse worked great, everything. But I did find myself basically, because it's seamless. That's one of the cool things. You can just at any moment just go to mouse, come back, go. But it just immediately changes. But
when you came back, were you using like pointer controls or were you using the stick?
I was using the stick, but if you lock on, you can then use pointer to like aim within the, you lock on and it kind of freezes you. So I was using a combination. I was using the stick, but then for certain enemies, I'd be like locking on and doing little, for the boss and stuff. He was doing that like little, motion. And so it all worked good. The motion worked good and stuff. It just wasn't like. It's great. Like it's sort of like a must buy sort of thing, I assume, for Switch 2. You get that. You got to get Metroid when that comes out. And what is it, August or something? I think. I don't know if they said the date. Yeah,
they've just said 2025. I'm
guessing it's going to be like August, September,
late summer, early fall.
That's what I'm thinking.
Border.
I feel like they're like kind of break since Donkey comes out of a month or so.
Yeah, that's mid-July. So I think that Metroid is going to be our like late August, early September game.
That's what I'm kind of like hoping and guessing. So yeah, you'll get it pretty quick. But it felt good. It just wasn't doing anything like it didn't do anything to blow me away. The enemies looked cool, they moved cool, and like everything looked nice. It was smooth, and it's fun, and it's Metroid. So if you like Prime, it just seemed like a logical, good next chapter. You know what I mean? Like felt like the progression of Metroid. So. What was next after Metroid? Oh, so then I needed to get over to Mario Party because I wanted to check out, same thing, this mouse stuff. I really wanted to see the mouse stuff. So Mario Party.
They did the mouse mini games?
Yep, they did they had like 8 mini games available that were mouse only. And they were fun. They had everything from like air hockey type thing, co-op air hockey, to like well,
that's right. I forgot it was co-op. It's 2-on-2.
Yeah, it's 2-on-2.
You got somebody in front, someone in back covering it. Yeah.
And that's hard with strangers to no coordinate. You're like both trying to be goalie, then both going up here. And the other thing in that air hockey, the mode that's kooky as hell is like you're playing with one puck, which is a Koopa shell at first, but then out of nowhere you like activate something where there's like 50.
Yeah, you get the multi-ball.
A ton of shells.
I forgot all about that. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
We were like destroying the other team, and suddenly that multi-ball, and they scored like 12 points in a second because they just all like ricocheted in. It was like chaos. It was so funny, but it was fun, like Mario Kart Chaos. It's a narrow play field on the air hockey, so you have not only do you have 2 pucks, but you have like a narrow play field, so the bouncing action gets very intense very quick. Yeah. So that was cool, air hockey. But the other games, what else did they have that was neat?
They had the spray paint
Spray
thing.
painting was neat because you're spray painting the bob-ombs, kind of just trying to spray paint them faster than the other players to get more of your color on them, and then you get points. And the neat thing about that, which I really appreciated, was when your spray can runs out, you lift it up and you shake it like a spray can, but you can feel, just like a spray can, the ball bearing moving around, and it felt good. It felt right. These were nice haptics, right? So yeah, every time it was very addictive. It was so fun. I just wanted to keep refilling my spray can. You hear that sound, which is such a satisfying sound. I don't know why, but it was, most of the games, extremely simplistic stuff with this mouse. The most fun I had, I like the mini game where you go through, you have to pick up toads and then you have to carry them through one of those like little mazes where you can't touch the edges.
Yeah, like the Operation style
and
thing,
it's a race. So that one's intense and that one's fun. I do wish they'd like zap your hand if you touch the sides though. There was no like, you know what I mean?
So, okay. I managed to get through without hitting the sides.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't. I did too, but I just noticed no one was getting zapped. I was like, that would be a neat thing to just like if they were like, that's a really strong haptic.
Did you do the one where you like pull back and like?
And that's the other one. Yeah, that's the other. The other one that I felt was the best game was you launch it back. Yeah, just like the toy pull cars, you pull it back, but then you aim it and you're like crossing this narrow log type of thing that has obstacles, but it also has the other racers going across, and you got to basically do it, You can almost make it in a one shot if you do it perfect, but mainly you got to go like halfway, then kind of do it again. But it has some fun physics in that one where you like hit the other cars and kind of tumble over weird, and you're really it's a race, but you're trying to get as many in a limited amount of time, and that feels good. Yeah, so you pull it back and then you rotate like this to aim, and then you let it go and then you try to relaunch it again. So that was the funnest one, probably those two. But so it's neat that they added that stuff, but it was simplistic, and it reminded me a little bit of Wii type of stuff, which is with this motion stuff. And I think that's important to point out because that kind of was prevalent in a couple other games like Street Fighter. I checked out Street Fighter, okay? What new things do they have in Street Fighter? So it's not only it includes all the stuff from the previous, editions, characters and everything they've added, but they basically add this like motion control mode,
Oh, okay.
This is straight out of the Wii days.
Likes to throw those things in there.
Straight out of the Wii days. We're talking about, you're just like tilting to move back or forward. You tilt backwards. You can block.
Okay.
You tilt backwards to block. You shake the Wiimote or the Joy-Con. Sorry, that's what I was going back to Wii hardcore on this. Shake the Joy-Con to do moves, then you do some weird rotation thing to do a special move. Your face buttons come into play then to do the what is it called when they do all the paint splatter? I'm not like a Street Fighter aficionado.
I don't remember the term.
That was pretty sick though. And then you also had the shoulder buttons, except you're using this tiny little Joy-Con sideways, so it just feels wrong immediately. As soon as you see Street Fighter, you get this little sideways Joy-Con thing, and you're just like, uh-oh. But you use those to parry, Overall, it kind of worked okay. It was fun. It looks sick because it's basically like other fighting game modes that have done the like instant combo thing where you're just pressing a button and doing rad stuff, So I ended up it was awesome looking, and I did fine, spamming, shaking stuff and everything. You can time it out. I mean, there's some strategy. Overall, it worked fairly well and stuff, but it was the type of thing where you're like, not going to get a lot of mileage out of something like that, obviously.
Yeah, they've got all the traditional controls in there.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
They're showing what's different.
They're just adding it in for a little bit of fun, and and honestly, I think this thing would appeal to like young kids. Actually, I think if you wanted to have, if they're watching you play Street Fighter, it's obviously a little complex for them, younger kids, and you want them to have a chance to check it out. I think that kind of stuff would be fun for them, actually, and they start to understand the concepts of what you're doing in a fighting game, blocking, especially, all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about young kids, I think that mode would be fun. And then with that mode, they had another thing that was like a calorie counter battle where like apparently the motion, Nintendo, this obsession with health, they've got this thing where it's apparently like counting your calories based on your movements that you're doing with the thing, and you're battling according to who. So I won because I burned more calories. But the fun thing about it is when you have the meter, the energy meter at the top.
Imagine that. Imagine like going to like a boxing match.
Using more of your...
And the person that wins is the one that they calculated burned the most calories.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny. They have like a bar at the top that equates how many calories. I wish they had like a digital number, and maybe they'll add it in. They don't show you that till the end. Then they show you your number of like how many you did. But the funnest part about that calorie mode is they equate like a food to what you burned. So I did pretty good. I had like 900 calories, so I got chilaquiles, which is like the super yummy Mexican, Latin American dish that's like chili and cheese and chips and eggs and all this stuff. Chilaquiles. Oh my God, it's good. And I saw that and I wanted to go eat chilaquiles too. So and I pummeled my opponent. So they only got like what was it? It was like a serving of cantaloupe or something, because they did like 90 calories or something. So that's kind of a cute thing. But super gimmicky Wii stuff. The game looked nice. That should be pointed out. It looked great.
No, people were talking about how good it looks on Switch.
It looked quite nice. A lot of these games looked quite nice. What did we do after that? I bumped into Ben Hansen and Janet Garcia. Nice. I was sick, and we played together a round of Dragon Drive. What's it called?
Yeah, Dragon Drive.
Dragon Drive. I needed to get my hands on
X, Drag X Drive, but they say Dragon Drive out loud.
Yeah, so we tried, we put it in together, joined a team. That game is like, I think it was probably what I was expecting it to be, which wasn't a lot. Did you get to try it out?
You want to talk about your Wii Sports. Like, that's 100% Wii Sports kind of experience there, yeah.
It is, but even not like, satisfying in the same way as I think it's a tough one. It's a tough sell. I don't know if it's like... It's a weird game for them to be kind of like as their most showcasey thing of the concept of like, oh, how can we use this?
How can we use two mice?
That really makes it feel like there isn't like a long game plan with this concept of motion control related to dual wielding mice. You know what I mean? I don't know how creative developers are going to get with this, but just the simple concept. I mean, the idea makes sense. As I was telling, Ben and Janet, like, I love trucking around on a wheelchair. A few times I find myself in a hospital when I was younger, and I was able to hop in a wheelchair because sometimes they put extra ones in the hallway. You're in the hospital for a while, you get in there, start riding around. It's a very satisfying thing to really, you know what I mean? And so I thought at first, like, oh, that could be cool, but the issue is surface. They had these big flat surfaces in front of you so that you could do it. So then Janet asked the very great question of, like, or I think it was her. They told her, oh yeah, you can use your legs if you don't have, like. So it made me think of the opinion yell where you're asking.
Yeah, no, and that's the exact same thing for me. Like, those demos were swearing by the fact that they preferred to play, with it on their pants, rather than using the table and the mouse pad.
So I was doing that for a while. I switched to my pants, and I was doing it for a while on my pants. And at first, I really liked it. I was like, "This is neat." It's a way they kind of added. It's like you're getting a massage, while you're playing a game, which is something kind of innovative. I mean, I was like, Nintendo, no one's ever done that before that I can think of. That sort of like self-massage becomes part of the gameplay. But after a while, it just wears on you, and I started to think about if it's wearing on my fabric.
Physical gameplay, yeah.
And something, in a wheelchair, I mean, that's the main thing. It's like the concept of it was really right of like, yeah, you control this wheel, and that idea is great. But because it's like in front of you, it's just, like you said, physically sort of demand. It's not like.
And then they told me, I don't know if they told you this too, but it was like, it's not about like being fast so much as like just, doing a long motion. So you do this kind of thing. And
really
you hit
consistent.
the brake and go that way or go that way. And it's like, I kind of like the way it controls, but like you're saying, it's like other than like, it's almost, it gives me like the impression of like a board game, right? It's like you're going to have everyone come over and play this game for a night. Yeah. And then you're not going to play it again for like 3 or 4 months.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, when are you going to... I'm not going to like become expert level at drag and drive.
Well, there's not much to it, because that's the thing. Yeah. If it was somehow like to the level of a Rocket League or something like that, it would be awesome. But it's nothing at all like that. It doesn't have that. It's not a robust game like that. It's a very limited sort of experience in that. It's basketball, so you're like the basketball part of it is like the equivalent of Wii Sports again, where you're basically just doing the arm motion and you make a shot and stuff like that, and you're positioning yourself. There is slam dunks and stuff, but there's just not like a huge amount there.
Yeah, to me the most satisfying part of that about that game, and it goes back to any other kind of basketball game, is just the teamwork part. Getting yourself in a position, passing at the right time, and like landing the shot, when the other person's like caught off guard. And
yeah, for sure. And fast, it could be fun to do fast break and stuff like that. So with a group of people, I could see you having some fun with it. But like you said, it's just a little novelty that you don't really know how much, and more than that, though, it just makes me, Nintendo's great at doing very simple things sometimes to show off their tech and just make you be like, yeah, this is rad. But, the fact that this is attempting to do that, and I don't think it really succeeds in like convincing people that this is like, or it didn't for me, that this is like has potential to be all kinds of other things. Like my imagination didn't really get going wild after I experienced it.
Well, and presentation-wise too, right? Like
it's a little drab looking.
Yeah, it's like not a step colorful. Above a gray box, right? It feels like a prototype kind of an experience.
It feels like I don't know if it was rushed or what the deal. Yeah, but just not very colorful, vibrant, exciting to look at or anything.
I don't think
not a lot of personality.
But I do think it's supposed to be this year.
Yeah, and that one too. You just kind of say, that could have been a pack-in, honestly, I feel like. Why not just give a game like that included to give people a little something to mess with, so whatever, it's no big deal, but, so that was Drag and Drive. It was okay, but it was kind of like basically what I was expected, and it also, I think, is just a little bit making me, kind of a little nervous of like my worst fear about this mouse element of the Switch 2 feels like it's coming a little bit true already. It was like kind of a little bit confirmed with that. That was the longest experience I had of doing something like with a mouse, like I did Metroid, but like I said, I kept kind of falling back on, Joy-Con controls. But after that, it's just that thinness that thinness of the Joy-Con when it's on its side and you're grabbing it essentially like this and you're using to click it, when it's a mouse, you're just like holding it between your fingers like that basically, and we all know most mice are like this kind of for a reason, I think.
Right.
There's an ergonomically proven reason. So I started to get that sensation of like, I don't know if there's any game that I want to, even if it's a mouse game like Civ. At the end, I wanted to try Civ. I've barely tried Civ, right? So I don't really know. I know about Civ and this and that, but Civ 7 I haven't like played a lot. But I just wanted to get an idea of like the interface. Like how does it feel to rotate around in the world? You can't rotate in Civ, but move in and out, move around the map, click on stuff. And again, it was the same kind of thing where it was like, okay, it's working, it's cool. Yeah, this is a mouse, but it's kind of a weird shaped mouse. And I don't know if I'd be like, for a game like Civ, I don't know how I'm going to feel after an hour or two or three.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of those things where, like, even as much time as they give us at a demo event, it's like, you've got to, like, just put the time in to see, because the other thing, too, like we were saying, is the tethers.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't get a good feel for a mouse when it's like tied down to the freaking security cable.
No, 100%.
That itself makes it feel more exhausting.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of it too, it could be solved. If it is an issue, it could be a very simple solve. Like literally they could have a housing for it.
Yeah. I won't be surprised
but then it gets into
there's going to be all kinds of like little
additional money thing,
third-party things that you can grab.
So ultimately, it should be a good thing. I mean, it's cool that they're including it. But yeah, still didn't really like, add any comfort of like, oh, this is really physically comfortable.
If there's one thing this industry knows, Don, it's how to sell people on a freaking mouse.
Yeah.
There's so many stupid looking mouse designs.
Oh, yeah.
From a million manufacturers. So it's like all you have to do is, make sure all the Joy-Con buttons are there and you've got it.
Yeah.
All kinds of different ergonomics going to be popping out for that thing.
Oh, and that was one thing they mentioned, which is important to know. A good thing about the mouse design is the shoulder button ends up being your primary clicking, like left click on the mouse. But the shoulder buttons they've made like a little flatter, and the way they curve, and they're longer, so they extend down
broader,
the side, and they sort of meld into the. So when you are clicking on it, it really does have that mouse, that smooth, elegant kind of mouse clicky.
Yeah, which I think again goes back to the disappointment of no analog triggers is because it's on a Joy-Con. They wanted to do the mouse thing.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that like could do proper analog triggers on a Joy-Con because they're just using so much space anyways.
Yeah.
It's like so much stuff packed into that little shell.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, that's the thing. Even though they said I knew the dimensions weren't greater, but for some reason I was expecting it to feel a little fatter, but it feels slim and elegant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it. What else? And then, that was about it. I checked out, like I said, Yakuza 0 and Cyberpunk, and both of those.
Zone.
Yeah, I was in the M-rated zone, and Yakuza, especially the 4K, they had it running in 4K, so it looked really nice.
Nice.
It did look
I didn't actually
nice.
end up looking at Yakuza, so that's cool.
Yeah, so it did look nice, and it played nice. It was also real smooth and like performance-wise, running nice and looking nice. I jumped into the arcade and played I just wanted to see Space Harrier. That's not pretty on the big screen though with the pixels. That was like jaggedy as hell, but it was still fun. I had to play some Space Harrier. They were very impressed, the Nintendo operatives that were because no one had jumped into Space Harrier and then made it so far. I was doing pretty good. They're like, oh, you played this game before, but. So that was it, and Cyberpunk, it was like operating nice. It looked great. I don't know that it's operating at its best, obviously, but it wasn't like there were visual
and that build was 7 weeks old when I played it, which means it's 2 months old now.
Yeah.
So they've been working on it.
I would say they're doing a pretty nice job overall. It felt really great. And I would have liked to have actually tried that one and portable mode just to see how that.
Yeah,
looked.
they even said that they wish that they had it there
because that I could see would actually be very satisfying.
CD Projekt guys were because they're saying they're like really like how it looks on the native screen.
I bet it looks good. Yeah, and speaking of the screen, it looked great. I had concerns,
Right? Yeah, you were worried about the brightness
not being OLED, but it looks really nice. I mean, it looks really obviously it looks. I would say probably better than the OLED. It's this regular Switch OLED, so it's good.
Yeah, because it has HDR.
Yeah, so it had a real nice bright color to it and everything. So yeah, I was impressed with that as well. So overall, it was a lot of fun. What a whirlwind. It's like, gosh, they had a lot. Oh, and the last thing, the GameCube games. I also checked out GameCube. Yes. Nice. And those were great. Okay, so there's a couple more things. I checked out GameCube. We'll try to wrap it up quick. GameCube games looked crisp. Mm-hmm. Dude, they've increased the resolution. Really good. F-Zero looked really good when you're actually playing it. Like, we saw it at the Direct, and I was like, oh, that looks crisp. But when you see it in motion, wow, it looked pretty. Soul Calibur looked great also and played great, so that was super fun. The GameCube thing, I don't know. No point getting into it, but only available on Switch 2, I don't know. No reason they had to do that, but again,
maybe
it's nice that when
you're talking about emulating a system, like a lot of the times it takes a significant amount more power.
But if you look at all they have a lot of games you can buy on the shop that are
true. Yeah, they put
hardware wise much more than what that is. So there's a lot of that stuff where it's just like that's too bad that's not available on old Switch also. But at the same time, it's awesome that's going to be there day one. That's going to like how cool is that going to be that right when you get your Switch 2, you got 3 or 4 games. I think it's going to have 3, right? Launch, it's not going to have
the one that's not launch is Strikers.
Yeah, Mario Strikers. Yeah, yeah. So that's cool. So it'll have Soul Calibur 2.
Wind Waker,
and F-Zero GX. Oh, and a cool little thing the guy told me, this F-Zero includes the additional content from F-Zero AX, the arcade one.
I am very frustrated with the people that train these demoists.
Is it AX? Because I was confused.
Yes,
okay.
It's always been there.
Okay.
Same thing with the widescreen. People are like, oh, it has widescreen now. And
he also pointed out the widescreen.
It always had widescreen.
Yeah.
F-Zero GX always had widescreen. So go back and look at my stream with Brandon Jones. I'm playing it in widescreen on a GameCube.
It did have...
And the AX stuff was there. It was just extremely difficult to unlock because there are 2 ways to unlock it. Either you went through and beat the hardest, I forget what difficulty it was. You had to really earn it.
Yeah.
Or what you did was you would take your memory card,
your
GameCube memory card, to the arcade, and then
sick.
The levels you did in the arcade, then you could bring them home essentially, and then your records and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome!
But those, the AX games were always in.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Well, I didn't know that, and they're talking like those are features they added. I thought so.
They might have. I wouldn't be surprised if what they might have done is kind of stripped out some of that stuff that didn't, isn't going to transfer over.
Yeah.
And just unlocked those levels from the get-go.
Yeah.
Rather than making it a super hard, challenging thing to do.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And then last, but certainly not least, one of the things actually that impressed me the most, I couldn't believe it, Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Yeah.
Dude, oh man, they actually added a lot to this game. Not only does it look very nice, but they solved some of the major performance issues. At least it seems like they did. If you recall with Kirby Forgotten Land, the original one, it had this whole situation where enemies that were a little bit in the distance, or if they'd get a lot of enemies. Remember they would get this weird flickering animation going on. It would start animating them at a lower frame rate. I think Damiani said.
That's a very typical, across the board technique. They'll reduce animation frames.
It was just noticeable and ugly in Forgotten Land. It was sort of an issue because you're just
So that's interesting that you picked up on that.
So I specifically was looking for that, and I didn't get to any zones that gave me great examples of where I had a bunch of enemies, but there were a few areas where there was a few enemies where I'm I'm pretty sure those enemies in the distance used to animate a little more janky than that because it just looked super smooth. Everything looked smooth. Graphics looked beautiful.
Yeah, because the levels that I played, at least, I don't know if they had multiple levels. This crystal star, whatever it's called, it basically created a separate level on top of the original level.
That's what's so awesome about this. Like, they have this whole new mode, but they've woven it into the game. So they start you in the same place where you start in the original Forgotten Land, but there's this whole ice and crystal element now. So all the stage is transformed in like a pretty elaborate way to make it essentially a whole new stage. I mean, where you're like, you know, as you progress, you're spreading this sort of like ice crystal stuff everywhere, and it's making bridges and platforms and new areas, and it just transforms the whole stage, and it looks really pretty, like beautiful effect when it's like frosting over everything and spreading this cold, you know, liquidy sort of ice effect on everything. And so yeah, Kirby looked great, played great, and it looks like they added a bunch of new like collectibles in there, some new powers and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, they have some different collectibles, including like little guys that you got to pick up. Yeah, and the one that they showed was like a spring Kirby.
Yeah, that's what I got to play with, and that's
the mouthful
super
mode.
Fun. Yeah, you can jump super high with it, and then you can do the smash down on things, so you can like spring from one area to another. So I wasn't expecting how much, and like new hidden collectibles, all this stuff. So and if you have the old one, you can it'll import your save data and all that stuff.
I didn't think about that. That's great. Yeah.
The upgraded version, you know, and it's like I think they might have said it's going to be like $20 or something, which
20 seems a lot.
Honestly, it sounds like a lot, but with what I saw, I gotta say, for that, although I'm complaining about some of this other stuff like nickel and diming, in that particular, it feels like almost fair because it really seems like they added a lot to this game. I mean, if that continues, it's hard.
I'm curious how big this expansion is. Like if they literally like took every level and essentially like put another level on top of it, I guess it might make sense.
For sure would be worth it then. I mean, that's what they didn't have the info, so they couldn't tell me, but it seemed that that's what they're doing, you know? So, and if they're doing even anything close to that, I mean, that's a significant change, you know? So
I'm curious about new bosses and stuff because that game had some actually surprisingly great bosses.
Yeah. And, I mean, one of the most epic, all the final bosses in that game is like, what a battle. So I'm sure they added some cool stuff. I mean, Kirby, the last few Kirbys too, just have such an amazing like new game plus stuff they put in too. It's just, good God. So Kirby was sick, super. The cherry on top was Kirby, and I was not expecting that either. So, but that would be a must-own when I picked this up. So, yeah, it was a tour de force, Blood. They had so much stuff on display. Everything looked nice and played smooth. So, not a lot of thumbs up, not too many thumbs down. It was a good experience. It was fun.
Excellent.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing more about.
Hopefully it won't be too long before we get one that we can put some more time into and get everybody else's thoughts too.
Yeah, so we're gonna get some more Mario or another Nintendo Direct probably, right? Soon.
We're gonna get the Mario Kart World Direct on the 17th.
That one. So yeah, there.
Yeah.
I'm crossing my fingers for fog, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we need to find. So.
Yeah, we got to have a ghost house or something.
Oh, yeah.
Good foggy ghost house.
Yeah, I played Bowser's Castle. That was awesome. Oh, my God. Shooting through Bowser's mouth and everything was super cool. Yeah, it's awesome.
Sick. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
And thank you for checking us out. We're Easy Allies. We are supported by viewers just like you. So if you like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out our podcast and our other Switch 2 impressions from the first event that I went to. And consider becoming a patron because that's how this all gets done. So go to patreon.com/easyallies, chip in $5 a month, and keep things rolling. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.